following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
We are back. Degraw's Yankees. Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. I'm Ralph Tycho, and I have the privilege of introducing the man himself, Jack Degraw. How are you, Jack?
Great, Ralph. How are you tonight?
Good. It was a sunny day in California, and spring is really springing. We had a little growth on the trees, a little foliage, and I'm a happy guy. How about yourself? What's going on?
Well, I went to my second Yankee game of the spring today, and it was like 80 degrees in Tampa, and the Yankees won 8-6, and it's a great time of the year. Great
time indeed. Who's playing shortstop? Tulowitzki?
Yep, Tulowitzki is playing, and he hit a 3-run homer today, and he had a home run Monday. And not only is he hitting the ball well, the encouraging thing is he looks really athletic at short. You know, he's moving around injury-free, and he's coming in on balls. So he looks really good so far. So that's an encouraging thing.
The steal of the summer. Think how much less he'll be making than Machado. Not that the numbers would be comparable in terms of what Machado's going to put up, but dollar for dollar, if you look at it that way, they may end up with a hell of a steal, or at least a very capable stopgap till Didi comes back. And I'm wondering if you have any update on his injury progression?
Well, Brian Cashman said yesterday they don't expect him back till late July or sometime in August because there was reports that Didi looked like he was ahead of schedule. You know, he's been throwing a little bit down here, and he's been on the field with the team, but, you know, he hasn't started hitting yet. So something like that, you better be conservative because you don't want to lose a player like Didi.
Okay. You know what else has impressed me about the first 3 or 4 games is that Bird is hitting the ball.
Well, the thing that's encouraging to me is like he's starting to go the opposite field. I mean, he's hit a bunch of doubles to left field. He had one today, and when he was really hitting the ball well, that's what he was doing. You know, he was using the whole field. So if they can get him back on track, I mean, you know, that'd be a great thing for him and for the Yankees.
Players get what they call pull happy, and I wonder if that's what got in his way.
Well, you know, they see that short porch at Yankee Stadium, and sometimes, you know, it just changes their swing, and a little adjustment, you know,
screws them
good
up.
end. Yeah, it messes him up, and that could be the case with Bird. So I hope he snaps out of it because I thought he was going to be a heck of a hitter.
You know, we go back in our memory bank every now and again. I might have mentioned this to you before, that the late Andy Hexum, when he was a kid from Alameda, California, was one of those affected both by the short-term success he had hitting home runs when the Yankees went on a postseason tour of Japan, and he came back thinking he was going to be the next Ernie Banks or whatever, and it just didn't work out for him. And I hope that this spring training gets Bird back on the right trail.
Well, I hope so too. And I remember, like with Carey, I mean, you remember how big the old Yankee Stadium was? You really had to hit the ball to get it out of there.
To be a right-handed hitter, of course, and didn't stop him from trying. One would be better off being a gap hitter, but I understand what motivates these guys. Home run hitters drive Cadillacs, Ralph Connor once said.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like most of these guys swing from the heels anymore, and it's
today's day and age, home run hitters drive Maseratis. So
yeah.
things have changed a little bit, finances in baseball. What do you think of the two signings? The two most coveted free agents have now signed. Bryce signed with the Phillies, Bryce Harper, and Machado with San Diego. What do you think of, how can I say this? How do you analyze the Yankees without them, without at least one of those two superstars? Do you think they'll hold up?
Well, I agree with the Yankees' approach. I wouldn't have gave either of those guys, these long-term contracts. I mean, they're both outstanding players, and I mean, Machado is going to have it rough out there in San Diego because, they allegedly have a good minor league system, but they got a long way to go before they're even an adequate team. And I think Harper with the Phillies, they contended for most of the year last year, and he could get them over the top. But I mean, he's got a 13-year contract, and if they can win one World Series and get in the playoffs a few times, because just think of all the luxury boxes they're going to sell, and all the tickets they're going to sell, and all the T-shirts. So, I wish them both luck. I mean, it's good for baseball. If the more good teams, the better.
Is that what it was? 13 years? I didn't catch that.
Yeah, I was talking to somebody sitting next to me. They were a Phillies fan, and they said it was 13 years, $330 million. Now, I could be mistaken, but
I
wow.
didn't hear 13. I thought I heard 10 for that, but either way, he's set. He's playing in a tough town. He better succeed.
Yeah, I mean, Philly fans are they don't take a back seat to anybody. I mean, they can get on their team as good as anybody. I mean, they love their team, and they also love to hate their team. So they got a lot in common with the Yankee fans.
Yes. What else about spring training stands out to you? I got my question answered about Tulowitzki, and I could honestly say that I feel that they're solid contenders now that they've got that gap filled between now and when Didi comes back.
Well, I just hope he stays healthy. Another thing, tomorrow night, Ralph, Gary Sanchez is going to play his first game of the spring.
Oh.
So that's something to look forward to. I mean, he'll be catching Paxton tomorrow night, and another good thing, Paxton has been talking to Andy Pettitte. The Yankees got Andy Pettitte in the front office, so I'm sure that's a good acquisition too. To pick his brain.
Is Reggie Jackson still around for spring training?
Yeah, Reggie's down there. Check out my pictures on Facebook. I got some pictures of old Reggie. He's still in the dugout.
Okay, I think last year he was walking with a walker. Did he have a hip surgery or knee surgery? What was that about?
He had knee surgery last year. He slipped and fell or something like that, and he had the knee surgery like sometime in the middle of March. So, he was walking with a walker there for a while. But Reggie looks good. He's still getting around. It's good to see him.
That is good to see. Any changes in Boone's attitude? Does he look a little more comfortable with the team in the second year?
Well, I think, he's easing into everything. I mean, the players, he's been there a year, and, he did a good job last year, and I think he'll, feel more at ease this year and stuff. I mean, they have high expectations, but I think, they'll have a better team, and hopefully the Red Sox won't be as good as they were last year.
Yeah. Saw a picture of CeCe, and he's in pretty good shape. Yeah,
CeCe looks like he's lost a little weight. He's pitched a couple, bullpens and stuff. So, but he's still a ways away. And Severino and Chapman, they threw a simulated game today. So I think we'll see them in about 3 or 4 days.
Okay. What's it like for a fan the first few games of spring training? I know you waited for this all winter. What when you sit out there, what do you concentrate on? Do you concentrate on the shortstop, the center fielder? What is it?
The thing is, Ralph, I try to watch a little bit of everything, and I always like to watch, the pitchers when they're in the bullpen and stuff. I try to get behind the catchers and see a little bit of that, just to see how the ball moves. And I also like, when the second stringers come in, the minor leaguers and stuff. So because then you get
along the way. Is there anyone who's caught your eye? Any prospect that stands out?
Well, not so much yet, because it's still early. Now, later in the spring, March 12th, that's when the minor league, exhibition games start. So I'll be heading over to Hines there and check out some of the young kids.
Okay. Who would you say is a prospect in the Yankee organization that it has that tag on him of can't miss?
Well, the thing is, Ralph, they're high on this Florio kid, and I don't know. I have some doubts about him. I mean, he's got a lot of talent, but will that talent develop into baseball skills? I think there's a possibility. You might see him in a trade. You might see Clint Frazier in a trade, and even Chance Adams. I mean, they tried to make Chance a starter, and he got, belted around yesterday. And even though he was a top prospect there for a while in the minors, they haven't called him up yet for any extended period. So, these guys know what they're doing. You can't judge minor leaguers just by their stats. You really have to see them. Do they have the talent to get big league hitters out or to hit big league pitching? That's something you can't tell unless you watch them.
Mm-hmm. Anybody that, any position, you mentioned trades, any position that you think needs shoring up? If they were going to make a deal, put together a package, what would you like to see happen?
Well, I would like to see him, and I think eventually it will happen. It might not happen by the end of spring training, but sometime before the All-Star break, I think they'll go after a big starter and stuff. And I also think you might see, because you don't know about Bird, you don't know about Voit, you might see him go for an infielder, utility infielder, and who can play a couple positions, because first base is still up in the air.
Okay, I saw some pictures the other day that really warmed my heart. One of my favorite Yankees of all time and my favorite Mets manager of all time, Willie Randolph. He's a spring training instructor, and what really made me feel good, he was working with Torres at third base. Andres.
Yeah, Willie is still down here, and he'll be here most of the spring. It's just a shame, Ralph. A guy like that, with his knowledge, and he was an excellent baseball player, and he did a good job with the Mets. I can't understand why he's not in working with a major league team, because
if not a manager, a bench coach, a third base coach, a first base coach, for crying out loud. That guy's class wears off wherever he goes, and with his knowledge and his enjoying teaching. I mean, I saw a little clip of him getting into it. He's still got the enthusiasm. That guy got a bad deal in baseball.
Well, you're right, Ralph. I mean, when he's down here, he's just not here to stand around in a uniform. He gets out on the field and he talks to these players and he works with them and stuff. And it's just a shame. I mean, I thought he did a really good job with the Mets. I know they blew a lead there at the end, but that was the bullpen just blew up on him. But I can't understand why Willie's not in the game.
I thought that he was a candidate for the Yankee job after Girardi left. I was going to say, I know it's getting so high tech these days, and the game might have passed him by from that standpoint. And he's a name manager, and I think the game is getting away from the name managers. The GMs are starting to get the publicity or the responsibility or the credit, this, that, and the other thing. I think the managers are in a reduced role. Do you agree with me on that?
Yeah, I think now you're not going to see the big names anymore. You have this analytics, and they don't want, guys who are, the old-time guys. You go by your eyes. Anybody can manage now if you just do it by the book. Right.
Well, you could tell because clubs are spending an inordinate amount of money on basically statisticians who break it down pitch by pitch, where each pitch is, the location where the pitcher should be standing on the mound, the shifts, this, that, and the other thing. I think it's a phase, and I know that statistics are only as good as the player is playing that day. And unfortunately, if players are not computers, they're subject to the same things in life, up and down. How do you feel? Good night's sleep, this and that. And that's where the gut feeling is, where a manager can talk to a player and say, how you feeling today? What's going on? This, that, and the other thing. That's been lost. I mourn that because I think we're losing that touch, the humanity of the game.
Well, I agree with you, Ralph. And I mean, you get these guys, these coaches, they've been in the game 30, 40 years, and then, somebody's coming in from college and they never played the game, and then, you're doing all this analytic stuff, and it just, it can still be used for the right thing, but I still think, when you have knowledge, you got to go by your eyes, too.
Right, and your feelings and your gut feelings, and some can do it, some can't. What do you fear is the Yankees are lacking in, and what are you confident in?
Well, I'm very confident in the lineup. I know they'll score runs and stuff. The thing is, the starting pitching, Tanaka's been hanging by a thread for 3 or 4 years, so you wonder if he's going to break down. The same thing with CeCe. And but I think they have such a good team, at least they're going to get in the playoffs. But I do think they have to get a starter eventually.
Okay. Overall, A, B, or C right
now? I'm very confident. Everybody who's a fan is very confident early in the spring. So I'm going to say, how about, Ralph, an A-.
All right, or a B+.
B+, okay.
When does it go from B+ to A-? One wonders.
Well,
I'll tell you what struck me this past few days when it went up from a B+ to an A- is, like I say, Tulowitzki. And if he's limber and fit in the field, he's got big strides. He had a lot of range, had a good arm at one time. like I say, it might be the stolen key to the season.
Well, I mean, he loved Derek Jeter. I mean, he wanted to come to the Yankees a couple years ago. So, I mean, I just hope he stays healthy all year. Oh, and another thing, Ralph, this will make us feel even older. In the seventh inning today, or in the eighth inning, there was this second baseman who got a 2-run double to knock in 2 runs for the Yankees. It was L.J. Mazzilli.
You know, he was Lee's kid, of course, and in the Met organization had some PED problems. I guess that's the best way of putting it. A few years ago, was he released by the Yankees or by the Mets or acquired by the Yankees?
He was. The Yankees picked him up this winter. So I think, he'll be in Trenton or possibly Scranton this year. So it's good to see him with the Yankees.
It's good he's got a Yankee name as well as a Met name.
Yeah, I think because Mazzilli, I remember coming to the Yankees in '82. And he's been down here in spring training for like 8-10 years, as instructor, and he used to be the first base coach.
Oh, I didn't realize that. I remember he was first base coach a year or two, but I didn't realize he stayed on as an instructor. An inordinate amount of former Mets or former Yankees that played for the Mets, former Mets that played for the Yankees. In the, I think of Gooden, I think of Strawberry. A lot of guys crossed over. Cone, as a good example. Players who were New York players who could play in New York. And there are some that can and some that can't. And we'll see if Tulowitzki can. I'll bet he can. He's been in small markets most of his career, but I don't think that's what's going to affect him. It's age, and if he can rehab the injuries before the injuries cause other injuries, like you hurt your right knee, and if you compensate too much, your left hip goes out, that sort of thing, and vice versa. So the trick is to rehab as soon as possible and come back slowly so that you're not putting pressure on the rest of your body. We'll see if he can do that. And I wish him the best because it's nice to see because he was right up there with the best shortstops in baseball.
Well, he was a great player. I think the plan is now they're going to rest him like 2 days a week. So he's not going to play every game, and I'm sure when they go on, AstroTurf, they might just sit him out too.
Yeah. The Mets have a shortstop that I can't think of his name. They just acquired him as some insurance for Rosario, and he played with the Yankees last year a little bit. A utility guy who's been
Heckavario or something like that.
Echeverria, something like that. He is reputed to have a great deal of range and can help the Mets. So that may be a guy that starts with the Yankees and then goes to the Mets. But he had been with 4 or 5 teams before that. But,
well, what's funny, Ralph? I mean, he hit 10 home runs last year and, had 50-some RBIs. And they were saying like he's a weak hitter. Now, you remember guys in the 50s and 60s, 70s, if they had 10 homers and 50 RBIs and hit 250, they were all-stars.
Right. And with today's day and age, I think he has a 240 lifetime batting average, which for a utility guy, that's better than 35 guys below the Mendoza line last year. 35 guys who qualified, numbers-wise, at-bats-wise, below 200. That's disgraceful.
Yeah, but, unfortunately, that's what's happened now. I mean, it's no big deal to strike out. It's just like, oh, well, it's just part of the game now.
More strikeouts than hits. That amazes me.
Yeah, that is pretty amazing. And one thing I'd like to bring up, Ralph, I don't know if you've seen this, Major League Baseball and the Atlantic League. It's an independent league, and it's probably the best independent league in the country. They play like in New York, Pennsylvania, Maryland, and they have a team down in Texas. And they're going to use Major League Baseball is going to use them as like they want to move the mound back. And also they want to have robo-umps. Now, I don't have all the information. They're going to announce this towards the end of spring training because the Atlantic League season starts mid-April. So I don't know why they're changing the rule. There's nothing wrong with the game, but that's another.
Accomplished by moving the mound back, would this not throw everything off? All statistics, if you're given an extra 30 or 10% time to think about the pitch or to analyze it, shouldn't you do better as a hitter if you have more time to see the ball? And is that all they're trying to do, is inflate statistics or make it like an arcade game, an arcade baseball game? I don't know what the purpose of that would be.
Well, the thing is, Ralph, there's nothing wrong with the game on the field. It's, I think now, the people who love the game can't really afford to go to the game. And baseball better watch themselves because the average age now is like 60 years old. And what's that going to be 10 and 20 years? The average age of the fan is going to be deceased and stuff.
Jeez.
Because I know going to these exhibition games, now granted it's early in the spring, it's during the week, but you don't see a lot of young people there. I mean, you don't see a lot of kids. You don't see people in their 20s and 30s. I mean, this week, the two games I've been to, most of the people are, over 50, 60, 70 years old. So, baseball better watch itself because, they're going to kill the golden goose and they might go on strike in a couple of years. So, I don't know.
I know. Now, you're an American League fan. How do you feel about the inevitability of the DH being phased out in the national, or phased in the National League? It's inevitable.
Well, the thing is, Ralph, I like the DH in the AL, but I can understand why, the National League doesn't, want the DH. So, I respect them to say, hey, we don't want this, and it does cause a problem when they have interleague play because, the Yankees lost Chin-Ming Wong and they had, I think Tanaka got hurt a couple of years ago. But, I have no problem with, the way it is now.
Okay.
The
way it is now with the DH in the National League, or the way it is now with the DH going out in or coming in the National League.
No, if the National League should vote on it, if they don't want it, that's fine with me.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess I'm a little more old school where I say from the old days, you got to have a glove and a bat. You got to but that's the way it goes. It removes a hell of a lot of strategy, not just the double switch, but the strategy to know when to take a player out for a pitcher out for a pinch hitter, when to leave him in, who to bring in. Are you better off getting a bat in, or should have you taught the pitcher to bunt in the first place? That would have been nice. I don't. Yeah, I'm an old school guy, so I'm going to miss 9 guys on the field, the same 9 guys who you have batting. But I see it coming. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, well, I mean, I can understand your argument, Ralph. I mean, but I'm an American, the Yankee fan, and they've had the DH for 45 years. But I agree with you. In the National League, there's more strategy. You got to pull double switches, but the thing is, the only thing I can say is like, I don't want to watch a pitcher bat, 3 or 4 times a game. That's just my take on it.
I appreciate that, but had the said pitcher, been trained to bunt and get a guy over instead of having the DH in every minor league all the way up, you might appreciate the skills of a pitcher. And in the old days, guys like Bob Turley hit home runs, Don Lemon, Don Newcomb, Bob Lemon. There were some damn good hitting pitchers back in the day. And
well, I remember Rick Rhoden. Rick Rhoden was a heck of a hitter. Kenny Brett could hit. Mel Stottlemyre. I remember going to Yankee games and seeing Mel hit a home run. So, there's pitchers who could hit.
Well, Kenny Brett, a pitcher, started out, George's older brother, started out with as an outfielder with incredible potential. They thought he was going to be the better hitter of the family, and so I miss 2-way players is all. That just me.
Well, I mean, are they definitely going to change it, Ralph? I mean, is that the...
I would say within 2 years, it's going to be part of the bargaining agreement that's coming up, the deal between the union and the association and the players. It's the highest category of pay, and I think they're going to insist on that. The union will insist on that. I mean,
I think the next labor thing is going to be it's going to be a real battle. I just hope they don't have a strike, but it might be headed that way.
That would be horrible, as were the last 4 strikes and or holdouts, whatever you want to call them. A lot of it is greed, pure ass greed.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to kill the golden goose because, I mean, they're pricing a lot of people out of the game, and, it's just not right. I mean, baseball should be for everybody. I mean, everybody should have a chance to go to a game and just watch this great sport, and then, it would motivate them. Maybe motivate kids to play. They don't do a good job of marketing. They got to get more into the game. And the unfortunate thing is now everything is so organized with the Little League and stuff, and some of these coaches are insane with the travel ball. Kids don't know how to organize games anymore. Workies up,
and it
up
sucks
again.
all the fun out of it if the kid is not enjoying it. And if he's feeling pressure that he shouldn't be feeling at that age when you're learning the game, you should be thinking about, the fun of it. And like you say, when we were kids, you choose up sides, and the kids would have a way of evening things out, and they didn't have the parents to scream at the umpires, and it's just a different world.
Well, I know where I am, Ralph. I go up and hit baseballs all the time, and my buddy, he's a Double-A pitching coach with the Cardinals. And you got some of these coaches up here, they're yelling at the kids, they're cussing and swearing, the kids are crying. And my buddy says, if I had to put up with that as a kid, I would have never played baseball.
Right. Hey, would you bring your buddy on as a guest one day?
Well, maybe I can get him on, Ralph. But the thing is, he's a little leery because he's from Venezuela, and you know what goes on over there. You know, he's got, and you know, you heard about a couple months ago these players got killed. They put a rock in the road, and they tried to avoid the rock because they knew if they stopped, they would have got, they would have come at them with guns. So that caused them to, they get killed. It's terrible over there. You know, he says, I know people who play over there, and they said it's just awful, Venezuela. And if they know you play baseball, they'll kidnap your mother or your brother. It's just a nightmare.
Wow, I did not realize that. So he doesn't go back? Is that the idea? He's here on a work visa? How does that go for him? Or does he have to go back in the off season?
No, I mean, he's got family over here, Ralph, and he could go over there, to be a coach in the Winter League, but, he'd rather stay over here with his son. And plus that country is so, they're in terrible shape. And, I talked to one guy, he goes over there, and he says, you go to the ballpark and you go home, and you got to watch yourself.
Yeah, well, hey, the world is a different place than when we grew up. It was a little more simple.
Yeah, it's a shame what we're becoming.
Yeah. Hey, on an up note, it's spring training, and we'll be back next week. How about that?
Well, it sounds great, Ralph, and I'm heading to the game.
Yourself, stay healthy, and I enjoy your company. It's the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. This show is Degraw's Yankees, and the man himself is here, Jack Degraw. Have a great week, sir.
You take care, Ralph, and good night to everybody.
All right. Thanks for listening, everybody. Adios. The proceeding was a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production. Thank you for listening.